10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 20, 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 20, 50, 50, 50 sold of an inch.
How did the Romans put a price on human life? From Greek boys to skilled Syrian women, Roman slave markets were brutal and calculated. Age, skill, and beauty could turn a human being into thousands of denarii, traded like property.
The slave auction is over. All right, take all these rejects over the Colosseum, sell them for lion bait. Wait a minute!
And here's where it gets wild. Imagine walking into the Forum in Rome, the sun beating down, dust in the air, and the chatter of merchants and buyers buzzing all around. Slaves weren't just background. They were the centerpiece of the market, their fates decided by shouting auctioneers and clinking coins. Every sale came with paperwork, contracts, receipts, and proof of delivery, not of goods, but of people. It was meticulous, cold, and precise. The 1st century BC to the 2nd century AD gives us the clearest snapshot of this world. This period wasn't just well documented, it was the peak of Roman slavery. Markets were flooded with captives from wars, and the economy was stable enough to set prices that historians can actually track. You get a real sense of the scale and brutality. But wait, it's about to get even more revealing. This stretch from the 1st century BC to the 2nd century AD isn't just random. It's when the story of Roman slavery comes alive. We're talking mountains of records, the Corpus Inscriptionum Latinarum, inscriptions etched in stone, and pages from Cicero, Caesar, and Lucretius. They all spill the details. Add in a stable economy and a flood of captives after Caesar's campaigns, and suddenly the market isn't just chaotic, it's predictable. Prices had standards, trades were clear, and the system was fully developed. This is the golden window for understanding exactly how Romans valued human lives.
What is this with lions? I can't go to the lions. I cannot go to the lions. Oh no, because I happen to know that the lions only eat Christians.
And here's where it gets striking. The Romans didn't just look at skill, they judged people by where they came from. Greeks, highly prized, educated, literate, loyal, and perfect for household roles or tutoring kids. Gauls and Germans, tough, strong, often gladiators in training, or built for heavy farm work and construction. Easterners like Syrians, Phoenicians, and Judeans were clever with trades, money, and crafts, ideal for managing estates or running business affairs. Then, there were people from newly conquered territories, cheap at first and easy to flood the market with, but as they learned Latin, adapted to Roman customs, and proved reliable, their value shot up. Geography and stereotypes shaped a person's price before even stepping onto the auction block. But wait, skill made an even bigger splash. Unskilled laborers were barely above the bottom, but a craftsman, scholar, or trained professional could command jaw-dropping sums. A Greek grammarian could fetch 10,000 denarii, a cook specializing in exotic recipes 100,000, and a celebrated Greek actor 700,000 denarii, a fortune rivaling estates. Intellectual and artistic skills weren't just useful, they were status symbols. Wealthy Romans weren't just buying help, they were buying prestige, sophistication, and bragging rights. So a slave's education and talent could make them worth 10 times, even 100 times more than a regular laborer. Have you ever imagined a cook being worth more than a small house? That's how cold and calculated it was.
Everybody.
And here's the reality check. Age could make or break a slave's price. Those between 15 and 25. Peak value, strong enough to work hard, young enough to last decades. Kids were cheap, a gamble. Infants or toddlers often came free with their mothers, with no guarantee of survival. By 10, prices started climbing, investment potential rising. After 25, the market turned. Value slipped, dropping further past 40. By 50, many were barely worth anything unless they had specialized skills. Imagine being judged not by who you are, but by how many years you have left to work. Brutal, cold, and unapologetically practical. Now the market got even more visual. For laborers, raw strength, endurance, and a healthy body could double their price. For household slaves, beauty ruled, graceful hands, symmetrical features, light skin, and sometimes even exotic appearances. Sellers would groom, fatten, or use cosmetics to boost a person's appeal. Inspections were invasive. Slaves jumped, lifted weights, and showed teeth, muscles, and scars, while buyers scrutinized every flaw. A limp, chronic illness, or visible defect could slash the price, though clever sellers often hid them. Physicality mattered more than personality, more than intelligence in some cases. In the end, every detail, from muscle tone to hair color, was a line item on a Roman balance sheet.
And I am a Jew. Jewish person. Yes, I can prove it. Watch this. Look at it.
And here's where the numbers really start to shift. Just like any modern marketplace, the Roman slave trade was driven by the simple but powerful law of supply and demand. A sudden flood of captives after a successful war could send prices crashing, while long stretches of peace tightened supply and made human beings more expensive. For example, during Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, it's estimated that close to 1 million captives were dragged into the Roman system. Overnight, the markets were so saturated that traders openly complained about profits disappearing because there were just too many slaves to sell at decent prices. Geography played a huge role as well. In Rome, the bustling capital and economic heart of the empire, the wealthiest citizens competed for the best workers, which drove prices sky high. On the frontiers, however, things looked very different. Towns along the edges of Roman territory often sold slaves much more cheaply, sometimes at half the price, because wealthy buyers were scarce. Egypt offered yet another angle, with prices tending to be even lower thanks to its own rich trade networks, river routes, and agricultural surpluses. Seasonality was another factor. Farm hands and field workers were in great demand right before harvest season, when landowners scrambled to boost their workforce. Yet as soon as the harvest ended, the same men might be worth half their earlier price. In short, the Roman slave trade was never stable. Timing, geography, and shifting needs could completely make or break a sale. Let's bring it to life with some real examples. First, a 22-year-old Gaul, strong, experienced in farm work, but missing 2 fingers on his right hand, was sold for a modest price, strength offset by the defect. Then, a 55-year-old Greek man, fluent in Latin and Greek, steeped in philosophy with teaching experience, but age dragged his value down. An 11-year-old Numidian boy, healthy with exotic looks, quick to learn, and with no real skills yet, was priced as a gamble on the future. A 17-year-old Syrian girl, striking and fair-skinned, trained in dancing, cooking, and speaking Greek, is highly prized. A 28-year-old Thracian man, gladiator trained with visible scars, strong but battle-worn. And finally, a 25-year-old Germanic man, physically imposing and durable, but branded as a fugitive, a risk for any buyer. Each lot tells a story of potential, risk, and brutal valuation. And now, the tricky part. How do you even make sense of Roman coins today? One method is the silver content. A denarius had about 4.5 grams of silver, worth roughly $6 in today's metal value. Sounds simple, but it barely scratches the surface. Looking at buying power like pork, beef, or chicken, 1 denarius could get you enough food for a small feast, roughly $20 to $25 in today's terms. Compare it to wages. A Roman legionary earned around 225 denarii a year under Augustus, which would peg a denarius at about $200. Grain comparison gives a lower estimate, $1.50 to $3 per coin. There's no perfect conversion because the Roman economy operated on entirely different systems: manual labor, local trade, and scarcity. The key is understanding what a denarius could buy, not just the raw dollar value. And here's where it really hits. A basic male slave with no special skills cost about 1,000 denarii, slightly more than a legionary's yearly pay. That same amount could buy a small shop in the suburbs. Skilled slaves, around 3,000 denarii, meaning a soldier would have to work 3.5 years just to afford one. A young, attractive woman could go for 6,000 denarii, nearly 7 years of wages, or the price of a modest villa outside the city. A slave physician, 20,000 denarii, the cost of a luxurious estate. These weren't abstract numbers. They were lives measured against coins, property, and labor. Every purchase represented a careful calculation of potential, risk, and status, turning people into investments in a market that never stopped moving. And here's the part that hits hardest. Behind every denarius, every staggering number, was a real person. A child ripped from their family, a craftsman forced into servitude, a woman sold into a brothel. The cold, calculated market didn't care about stories or dreams. The auction blocks were brutal theaters of human fate, where youth, beauty, strength, and skill became currency. Buyers scrutinized teeth, muscles, scars, and even personal charm. One misstep, one flaw, and your value could plummet. And yet, some slaves became prized possessions, symbols of wealth and refinement, almost trophies for their owners. The market didn't pause for morality or emotion. It adapted, expanded, and lasted over 1,000 years. Slavery in Rome wasn't just an institution, it was a relentless, organized, and inescapable system, turning lives into investments and calculating worth with ruthless precision. So what's your take on this? Thousands of denarii for a life, brutal, cold, and calculated. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this shocked you, hit like and subscribe. Next week, we'll dive into another jaw-dropping chapter of ancient history. You won't want to miss it.